Welcome back to my series on whitewashing history and Black resistance. Today we'll explore textbooks in the Confederate States of America. Some of these books are pretty crazy, but before we jump into that, let's review the founding of the Confederacy. In the early 1860s, some southern states broke away from the U.S. and formed a new country, the Confederate States of America, often simply called the Confederacy. This new nation ultimately claimed 13 states. That's why this Confederate battle flag has 13 stars. All of these states held constitutional conventions to discuss secession and create new state constitutions. The activities of these conventions were published in official journals and newspapers. Some states also wrote formal documents specifically to explain why they were leaving the Union. It was their own kind of Declaration of Independence. These documents provide a window into the racial ideology that the Confederacy was founded on and that was embraced by many prominent educators. I'd like to take a look at just a few before we jump into the textbooks. South Carolina's Declaration of Causes listed slavery as a key reason for secession and alluded to abolitionist publications. Here's a list of some of their complaints. They have denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. They have permitted open establishment among them of societies whose avowed object is to disturb the peace and to elloign the property of the citizens of other states. They have encouraged and assisted thousands of our slaves to leave their homes, and those who remain have been incited by emissaries, books, and pictures to servile insurrection. Mississippi's Declaration of Causes bluntly states, "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest in the world." A bit further down, it says that the U.S. advocates black equality, socially and politically, and promotes insurrection and incendiarism in our midst. It has enlisted its press, its pulpit, and its schools against us, until the whole popular mind of the North is excited and inflamed with prejudice. The Declaration of Causes written by Texas also mocks the idea of racial equality. It says that non-slaveholding states were proclaiming the debasing doctrine of the equality of all men, irrespective of race or color, a doctrine at war with nature, in opposition to the experience of mankind, and in violation of the plainest revelations of divine law. At Louisiana's secession convention, a member named Alcibiade de Blanc stated that the inauguration of Abraham Lincoln will inevitably lead to the emancipation and misfortune of the slaves of the South, their equality with a superior race, ere long to the irreparable ruin of this mighty republic, the degradation of the American name, and the corruption of the American blood. Alexander Stephens, vice president of the Confederacy, gave a rousing speech describing the principles of their new country. He said, "Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests, upon the great truth that the black man is not equal to the white man, that slavery and subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition." In order to see how this ideology translated to the realm of education, we can look at the textbooks that were published. There weren't any for history, but there were several in geography, reading, philosophy, and other subjects. None of these books were widely used. However, they provide an interesting look into the kind of nation some Confederate citizens hoped to create. A System of Modern Geography was published in 1862 by General John H. Rice. The content of this textbook is almost indescribable. He says that the black race is found in all parts of Africa except on the northern coast, and in America where they have been brought and humanely reduced to their proper normal condition of slavery. In the section on the Confederacy, he plainly states, "Slavery is expressly recognized in the Constitution, as it is in the Word of God, and practiced in all the states and universally approved of by the people." The Geographical Reader for Dixie Children was written by Mrs. Miranda Branson Moore. It claimed that slaves were contented, saying, "Much of the field work is done by slaves. These are generally well used and often have as much pocket money as their mistresses. They are contented and happy, and many of them are Christians." In the section on South Carolina, the author says that the war has ruined the state and then goes on to mock black Union soldiers. They told the slaves they were free, and even formed regiments of them to fight against their masters. But the black man is too cowardly for a soldier, so he is but little service to his northern friends. Geography for Beginners was written by Reverend Kinsey John Stewart. He was a minister at St. Paul Episcopal Church in Alexandria, Virginia. In the section on the Confederacy, he claims that God is on their side. The North had tried to break up the Confederacy, but by the constant, evident, and acknowledged aid of the God of battles and King of nations, these efforts have all failed. Elements of Moral Philosophy was written by Reverend Richard Henderson Rivers. He was president of Wesleyan University at Florence, Alabama. It contains an entire chapter dedicated to defending the institution of slavery. It makes the claim that slavery is right, for it offers the only form of government adapted to the present condition of the black race. During this time period, as in others, Black Americans resisted in a variety of ways. They continued to publish their own stories, like Harriet Jacobs, who wrote an autobiography titled Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. They also continued to free themselves. Hundreds of thousands of enslaved Black Americans escaped from the Confederacy during the Civil War. Huge refugee camps often formed around Union lines. They also continued to fight. Nearly 200,000 Black Americans served in the U.S. military in combat and supportive roles. Many Black women also served unofficially as nurses, cooks, spies, and scouts. Black Americans also sought out an education for themselves and their children, which will be the subject of my next episode. I hope you learned something new and interesting today. Next time we're going to talk about school books written specifically for newly freed Black Americans.